Hello, welcome to One Big Question. We are discussing today approval tests versus acceptance tests. What is the difference? This is the Modern Software Engineering channel. Welcome, I'm Emily Bache, and I'm delighted to be discussing this question today with Kent Beck. Hello, Kent.
Hello, Emily. How you doing?
I'm good. It's really good to get to chat with you about this.
Yeah.
Okay, approval test versus acceptance test then.
Yeah, so you, in a recent video, you made a strong distinction here, and I want to make sure that I understand what you mean by approval tests and how it's similar to or different from things that I may have done in the past or taught about in the past. Later on, we can figure out where that fits into the constellation of all testing, but right now, there seems to be a distinction, and I'd love to understand more about it.
Yeah. So in a recent video, I did actually imply that I didn't think you had tried approval testing. And I realized afterwards that a lot of people confuse approval testing with acceptance testing. And I don't want to imply that you haven't done acceptance testing, because that's a really, really important technique. And I'm sure you've done that. I mean, everyone's done that. That's tests from the customer perspective, from the perspective of the person who's going to accept the software or not. So that's a very general term. Approval testing is a technique that I've been using for many years, but it's quite niche in comparison. I mean,
so my suspicion at this point in my aging career is I've probably done something similar, but I use different words. So I want to make sure that I understand what you're doing. Now, I wanted to set up all of this by saying this is a conversation that's been going on for 25 years.
something like that, yeah.
So I remember you showing up in Sardinia at the early XP conference, and all the XPers were walking around talking about how amazing their unit tests were and how you could catch almost all bugs with unit tests. And you said, no, there's this other thing. So it's not like this is a new distinction or a new conversation.
No, it's true. I remember meeting you back in 2002 and talking about testing. And yeah, it's a technique that I've been using for a long time. And the name approval testing actually is later. We only started calling it that in about 2012. And when we first talked, I think may have been calling it text-based testing, which is a term that never caught on. But most people who have used this technique might have called it golden master testing or snapshot testing. Those are kind of similar, a little bit different though, I think. And people often use an approval testing framework to do characterization testing.
Okay.
It's also a closely related technique.
So, Emily, can you give me an example of approval testing?
Yeah, so if at the simplest level, it's the name comes from the way you approve a result rather than make an assertion. So in a normal unit test, you would have arrange, act, assert, given, when, then. And in an approval test, it changes the assert part. You have, I would normally explain it as arrange, act, print, diff. So instead of asserting something about the result, you print it to a string or some other format that you can then diff against a previously approved version of that test result.
So is screenshot testing an example of this?
It could be if you are looking at those screenshots and checking them and approving them explicitly.
Yeah, so I had a student at Facebook, Arnold Noronha, who has this Android screenshot tester that will show you the difference between the screens before a change and after a change. And sometimes you'll get changes that aren't errors. Something moved by 1 pixel and that's fine, don't worry about it. Sometimes you'll get no change when you expect no change, and that's good. And sometimes you'll get a change that is an error. So you kind of have 3 states to the output. And then you have to decide when you see a difference, did the behavior actually change or not? In contrast to unit testing, where if you make an assertion and it fails, something's definitely wrong.
Yes.
Okay, so I have done this. I've done it in multiple forms of output. PDFs, for example. So for those same 25 years, I've worked on a life insurance system that's quite large and has gajillion tests, and many of which are based on, now print the annual report for this contract. Is it the same as the annual report was before, or does it match the expected values? So I've done it with PDFs. I've done it with HTML, which isn't a good format because things change so much. I've done it with pixels, screenshots kind of thing. I've done it with the first one of these that I did was at MassPar, ancient history. But I had the whole user interface. Every widget knew how to render itself as a string. And so you get this big trees kind of structure, and then you diff that. So yes, I've done this. The key distinction for me seems to be that you have this 3-state output instead of 2-state output.
Interesting.
What else is going on that you see?
Yeah, so I'm very happy to hear you talking about that this is something you've done. That's not something that I've noticed from your writings about testing, at least. So, and I've also done it with PDFs. I've also done it with GUIs. And actually with HTML, I've got a printer that converts HTML to ASCII. And it's the ASCII that I use in the test because HTML's got all this, yeah. So that's a revelation that you've done this. Yeah, and you're right. The thing with an assertion is, as you say, it passes or fails, and the test passes or fails. But with an approval test, you've got to work out if you can approve the new result, or if you don't care and you should be filtering it. So you need to change your printer to scrub that, or otherwise not print it, or whether it actually is a bug that you need to go and fix. So yeah, you need more tools in approval testing to help you to interpret the results, which is one of the reasons I usually say, use an approval testing tool that someone else has built. Don't build your own.
Oh, interesting. I mean, I love building tools, so I would say exactly the opposite. Because here's why I don't use it all the time. It's because it has this long-term maintenance cost where you can't just run it. If it passes, you go into production. You run it, it fails. Now it's asking for your attention once again. Let me look at it. And sometimes you'll make one little change and 100 tests will fail, which is the first one that I did. That was, I would come in the morning and there'd be this stack of printed failure reports on and the first time I just kind of panicked, like, oh, I must have broken everything. And no, it was just some date thing or some, it was something stupid though they weren't actually failures. So I prefer to move validation into whatever we're going to call, okay, so approval testing has this 3-state output. And then there's these other tests that have a 2-state output, which really is red and green. And then there's observability, which is a whole separate kind of, there isn't binary results to it, but the topic for another day. So that's my main reluctance to use approval testing. And I hadn't thought to give, something that you've added to the conversation is giving it this name for diffing PDFs and screenshots and custom generated text and whatever other format.
I wanted to pick up on what you just said about you come in and you find you've got a pile of 100 failing tests, and actually it's just one logical change. And that seeing 100 failing tests is kind of stressful until you realize it is just one logical change and the fix is just to push the approve button and all of the tests go green. And you only feel confident to do that if you can ascertain that it's just one logical change and that all 100 tests are failing for the same reason, which is why you need tools that will tell you that it will help you to differentiate those cases. I've got 100 bugs and 100 failing tests, and no, actually I've got one bug.
Or not even a bug.
Yeah. Or it's, this is actually, this is good. The thing changed and I wanted it to change. And then just hit the approve button and it's green. And I love the updatable, the fact you can update these tests so easily. When the behavior changes in the way you wanted it to change, it is much easier than updating assertions often. The other thing I really like about approval testing is that when the test fails, you get a diff. So you get the context of all the differences. You can see what's still the same and you can see what's different. So you I call this diagnosability in the test is really good, usually for approval tests, if you've done your job well and designed that print step in the test really well.
Yeah, so in test desiderata terms, we'd say it's specific. From a difference in the output, you can guess what the difference in the processing was.
Yes. So that specific is one of the desiderata, and it's the one that I wanted to rename to diagnosable, because I don't mind if I think the word specific that you chose there is saying I can kind of pinpoint the error. The more important thing that I desire to have in my failing test is that I can diagnose why it's failing. And it might not just be one thing.
Yeah. We'll talk about the test desiderata and how it needs to be refined at a later date. I'm glad we're getting this one sorted out. So here's a challenge that I see with approval tests is a social challenge, which is I run them. I get the 100 failures. I look at the first one. I say, oh, I know what this is. Approve all these. And there's another error. So I see people, and this happens in manual testing too, that same dynamic where the more pressure there is and the more stressed you are and the more time is ticking away, the less value you get out of the tests because the more likely you are to just jump to I think these are all fine. And you'd actually change two things, or you change one thing and somebody else changed something else and there was something else lurking. And so you just said the system's okay and the system's not okay. And as the pressure ratchets up, that problem gets worse. So that's definitely something I felt using it like, oh yeah, fine, but not fine. And so not to say you shouldn't use it, but it is a weakness of this compared to if the unit test pass, everything's fine. That's a myth, but how close can we get? That's always my question with that.
The thing you just said about that with approval tests, it is easy to update them all and approve something you didn't mean to approve. That's where you need the tools to tell you, actually, are you aware that you just approved something with a stack trace in it that's probably a bug? I mean, it's building that tool support in so that it makes it, if you're trying to approve something that is obviously wrong, the tool will notice that for you. Or if you're trying to approve a lot of tests because you assume they're all failing the same way, it will say, no, actually, they're not. I'm grouping these tests for you. These all failed this way. These failed in this other way. You need to look at least one from this group and one from this group. But that thing about the pressure ratcheting up and you're more likely to make mistakes when you're under pressure, yeah. So you need tools that help you.
Yeah, that's why I want to migrate as much of the confidence generating of the property of tests down into things that give me binary results. Now, I worked on enough big systems to know that red and green is nowhere near the whole spectrum, that there's all kinds of stuff in the middle and there's stuff you can't find out until you get into production. But if I can move some confidence into a Boolean test, so it's like we have Boolean tests that are red or green. We've got these approval tests that are they have a ternary 3-valued result.
So the third state of the approval test is this thing where there's a diff, but you don't care.
Right. System's fine, but something irrelevant has changed.
Yeah. And this again is where you need to have tools that help you to start ignoring those kinds of changes. And what you find over time is that when the test is new, there are lots of things that it specifies that you don't care about, and you gradually start ignoring them. And over time, the test becomes stable and doesn't fail for irrelevant reasons anymore. It's like there's this kind of, the test design phase takes a little longer, maybe, before you're happy that this is a test that is really solid and deserves its place in your test suite.
I would love to see data on this stabilizing effect. So like how many accept alls or whatever you call that operation, how many accept alls happen? How many of these jackpot outcomes where you get 100 suspicions? Can we call that result a suspicion?
You mean that the behavior has actually changed? I mean, it's either
No. So something's changed. We don't know if something actually changed. We're just suspicious.
Okay.
That's what the approval tester does, right? It says, yeah, nothing changed. No suspicion, totally confident.
Yeah.
Or it's like, something has changed. I'm suspicious. That doesn't mean I'm wagging my finger, but it does mean that somebody needs to take a look at this. I can't.
Yeah, so red doesn't mean that there's an assertion that's failed, something is definitely wrong. It means something has changed. Yeah.
So this being 2026, I have to ask this question. What's the genie going to do to make this work better?
Oh, I think I don't know. I mean, this is very early days because using agentic AI is so new. But I have my experiments so far tell me that having this text, I mean, genies love text, and diffing text is something, and comparing text is something that they're good at. So interpreting test failures, I think, is something that genies are going to be able to help with. And I want to come back to this question when I've got a bit more experience, though.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, to listeners out there, try everything you can think of. Experimentation has never been cheaper. Nobody knows what the right answer is. So just give it a try and see what happens.
Yeah, it's too early for there to be experts who can tell you how to do this.
Yeah, it doesn't mean expert is both. There's a real part of it and then there's a tone part of it. And there's plenty of people who still have the tone, but nobody has the experience.
Yeah.
Cool. So have we had the conversation that we needed to have?
I think so. I just wanted to make sure it was clear how approval tests differ from Golden Master and snapshots.
Oh, yes, please.
So Golden Master is, the term is, I think, from CDs, that the original that you made all the copies from was the Golden Master. So it's this kind of, I don't like that because it implies that the approved text is somehow golden and special and should never change. And it's not. You're updating it all the time. And it's similar for the term snapshot testing. For the other reason, people say, oh, this is just a snapshot. I don't actually care. I expect it to change all the time. I'm not even going to really look at it. I'm just going to record the snapshot of what my system does today. And
in which case, why are you even doing that?
Well, yeah, it's like I mean, this is the default behavior of Jest, as far as I can make out, that the first time you run the test, it just records the snapshot. It doesn't even show it to you. And for approval testing, you have to look at the thing and approve it when you're designing the test. So I don't like snapshot because it implies that it's here today, gone tomorrow. You don't care what's in it. I do care what's in it.
So the snapshot testing, as my friend Arnold uses it, it's snapshot in the sense that it's a picture. It's pixels, not in the sense that, no, this is ephemeral. So lots of people, one elephant, and we're working out the words for all of this, which comes after the experience. And the strange thing is, given many decades before even my time, people have been working on testing stuff, and we still don't have anything like common vocabulary for this stuff.
Thank you so much for having this conversation with me so that we could clear up some of the vocabulary and discover we do actually have experience of the same technique. We just haven't been using the same words.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Emily.
This has been great, Kent, and I look forward to having further discussions with you about testing. This has been great. And welcome to the Modern Software Engineering channel. Please subscribe for more of this and like this video if you've enjoyed this discussion.